Welcome to CAM Matters, Condos, Co-ops, HOAs, and beyond. Betsy Barbieux is an informational leader in Florida on community association living, rights, and obligations. She is an expert on the rights and obligations of owners as well as the association. If you live or are planning to live in the state of Florida, there's a good chance you'll be part of a community association. And by the end of this show, you'll know a little bit more about community associations and why they matter.
And welcome to another episode of CAM Matters. I am Suzanne Lynn. I'm your host with the star of the show, Betsy Barbieux, who is the expert on all things CAM related. Betsy, I'm glad that you're here today.
I'm glad to be here.
So, it's interesting as we were talking about what show to do, what to touch on. Civility seems to be a pattern that we keep riding on. And there's a good reason for that. You're not making things up. You're responding to what you're seeing in the communities. And I'd love for you to just kind of set the foundation of what that is.
The civility, we're going back to board meetings gone wrong, budget meetings blowing up, calling the police. I called the police again last week.
You did not.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I said to the gentleman, I said, please don't make me call the police. You know I'll do it. Please. Please, our conversation is over. There's nothing else that we have to say right now. I can't help you right now until I do some research. And, it's getting to be wearisome. And it reminded me of an article I wrote, Rules of Civility by George Washington. It reminded me of an article I wrote. It was almost 11 years ago.
And it applies as much or more today. Nothing's changed. How sad is that?
And it's not funny. Yeah. But I think not only did I think things were unruly 11 years ago, but they still are. And it seems to be getting worse. And not just community associations. Just people in general. You go to the store, you look at politics, you listen to stuff on the TV and the radio, and people are just, I don't know if people are just angry or if they've just totally lost all sense of manners and civility.
Right. I think people are really lacking empathy, and they're not able to put themselves in other people's shoes, and very self-focused, for one thing.
I would agree. And we have a society that encourages us to think only of ourselves.
Yeah. And Betsy, I guess the bad news is this is a very political year. It's an election year. And that is dividing. That's not just dividing communities. That's dividing families and friends.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're seeing? I don't mean physically as far as punches being thrown, but as far as attitudes that are causing the breakdown in these meetings. What are you seeing with that?
Well, I'll go back to another show that we did a couple of times ago. The unwillingness to learn, to be open to thinking in a different way, not necessarily that you're wrong, that it's not admitting that you're wrong. It's just that there might be 3 or 4 ways to get to the same solution. And I was talking with Denise, my manager, and we've been talking about people who come in and want to ask questions, but they don't have the knowledge, background, skill set to really understand the answer. Like for instance, financials. To try to explain a budget to somebody who doesn't understand at all what a budget is or what it's for.
Or numbers or something. In fairness, some of this is complicated.
Well,
some of them is not so.
But the idea that a budget is your best guess at the next year's expenses and income doesn't seem hard to me to understand that this is our best guess of what we think we're going to spend and what we think then that we have to bring in as income next year. That, for most communities, is determined in October for the next year.
Well, sure.
well, we have no idea what's going to happen starting January.
Right.
And so when another keeps saying to me, so are these the current figures? Are these the current figures? No, they're not current figures. They were current when we did them in October.
Right.
I
You're
said,
asking me to look into the future.
I said, do you mean a profit and loss statement? And she said, well, I don't know what that is. And I said, well, the moral of the story is it's dangerous when you don't know that you don't know. It's dangerous when it's perfectly all right if you come and say, I don't understand any of this at all. Will you explain it to me? But when somebody thinks that they understand it all and they don't know that they don't understand it all, that is a frustrating situation for everybody involved. And I think that is happening in a lot of our communities, especially now that we're talking about a whole lot of money more money being needed for our communities to support them. And people don't understand that money is and will come from them. The statute requires it. The insurance premiums are going up. A lot of communities are being required to re-roof before they plan to because insurance will insure their roofs. And I still have dozens of friends on both coasts that are still dealing with hurricane repairs from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah. And owners are getting special assessed for those repairs that insurance didn't pay for. And they're coming up with $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 each that they're being special assessed for. So people are really edgy, and the economy is bad. Everything costs more.
Yeah.
The report I heard yesterday said the average family is spending $1,100 a year more on groceries. So
there's some hard choices that families are having to make.
Pinched from every direction, and money makes people crazy.
Absolutely. I think that's the name of the show. Right there.
Money makes people
crazy. Yeah. It does. It brings on stress and just, selfishness and not an inability to be able to listen and think about what other people need and why they're asking.
Right. And then you start with the premise of I can't pay a penny more. So then understanding why you have to pay would help. Not liking that you have to pay is another matter, and then trying to figure out some other way to get around that is different.
Right.
But when you don't really even understand how the process works and what you signed up for, when you signed your closing documents, you promised to pay your share of whatever it takes, no matter how much it takes. You promised to pay. And that's hard to swallow, I'm sure, on the other side of closing. Closing, you're not told that.
Right.
So I'm asking for people to try to think about being more civil. And George Washington had some of the coolest rules. I didn't know that he was such an author. I don't know that he was an author, but apparently he spent a lot of his time practicing his penmanship by copying rules of civility that were written by somebody.
How smart.
They were written by in 1640. What I want to go over and read a few things. Written in 1640 by Francis Hawkins. He was a French Jesuit, and he wrote 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. And apparently George Washington practiced his penmanship. Does anybody know what that is? Practiced his penmanship by rewriting all of these rules of civility.
Maybe, Betsy, we need to just ask people to write sentences of civility.
We used to do that.
Yeah, we did. What George Washington did was it got into his mind, but it got into his heart.
Yes.
And then he was able to pour it out.
And we do know that he was a believer. And so he depended a lot on God. So these rules of civility went straight into his heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we still talk about him today as being the greatest president and greatest commander ever.
That's right. Betsy, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and talk more about civility and how we can make a little difference, at least in our CAM world.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Are you ready for a new career? Do you have skills or interest in management, real estate, construction, maintenance, accounting, strategic planning, project management, budgets, human resource management, lawn and landscaping, pool services, or any other expertise needed to operate a community association? If you do, community association management could be for you. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Florida Community Association Management continues to grow. Career opportunities abound.
And welcome back to this episode of CAM Matters. I'm Suzanne with Betsy Barbieux, and we're talking about civility. Imagine a kinder, gentler world. And Betsy, you were talking about and praising, singing the praises of George Washington, and what a good man of character he was. And he wrote some things that he wanted to share with us. It's in Old English, so I'm going to have you share it.
So let me see if I can stumble through, but you'll catch the gist, and then I'm going to give you my twist on it. Okay? All right. He says, in the presence of others, sing not to yourself with a humming noise, drum with your fingers or feet. And my interpretation of that is, quit clicking your pen at meetings.
Oh, my goodness. Stop looking at your phone.
Stop looking at your phone. Stop clicking that pen and making those noises in meetings.
Wow.
Then he says, now this is rule number 12. Shake not the head, feet, or legs, roll not the eyes, lift not one eyebrow higher than the other, wry not thy mouth, and bedew no man's face with your spittle by approaching too near him when you speak. And so my interpretation is, don't make faces when others are talking about something you disagree with, and don't talk so forcefully in the face of another that you spit on him.
Boy, that's good. The other thing is, you've seen that meme go around that says, my face says everything I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of self-control, which I struggle with, you know, it's like, and you know what I'm thinking based on what's happening here, you know?
And it's hard when somebody says something and you go,
what?
Or roll your eyes.
What?
It's hard.
All right, lay another one on it.
And this one, you and I already know about this one. Do not puff up the cheeks, loll out the tongue, rub the hands or beard, thrust out the lips or bite them, or keep the lips too open or too closed. And my interpretation...
I'm going to need your take on that.
Okay. Yeah. My interpretation of that is, if you ever get a chance to see a video recording of yourself giving a presentation, you'll stop all those annoying and distracting facial mannerisms. And I tell you, I'll give a plug for Toastmasters. If you want to get rid of the ums and ahs, which a lot of people on TV, including newscasters, need to do, you need to join Toastmasters and learn to get rid of those ums and ahs and double clutches. They're just so distracting.
Teaches you how to stay focused and really be interesting for the audience. What are some others?
Okay. This is rule number 21. Reproach none for the infirmities of nature, nor delight to put them that have in mind thereof. And so my interpretation is, don't look down upon those who are less fortunate than yourselves, parentheses, pride, nor pay any extra special attention to those who have more and wish you had more too. That's greed and envy.
That's really good. That again applies to the CAM society, CAM friends, but also to life. Just being a good coworker, just being
nice
a good
people. Just be
sibling
nice
or child. Yeah, exactly.
So,
don't look down. Yeah.
This one is a pet peeve of mine. And so now I'll probably get 14 telephone calls that'll do this.
Okay.
So let your discourse with men of business be short and comprehensive. So my interpretation is keep conversations, meetings, and telephone calls short and to the point. Don't keep saying the same thing over and over again. If you leave a message, make it a detailed message. Never say, call me back.
Right.
But leave the reason for the call so that the person can, if they need to research or look something up, they can do that and call you back one time instead of two.
Wow, that's good. Betsy, before we start to wrap up, just could you give us a little bit of maybe a little alternative way of thinking, whether we're on the board or we're in the audience during a meeting? What are some helpful tips of, for example, you had said, ask questions, be open to it. What are some other things that we could enter into the meeting with a new attitude to bring that temperature down right from the beginning?
Well, what I continue to find is that a lot of board members and managers, and then the owners, and through no fault of the owners, it's because management or the boards don't know the purpose of the meeting.
Right.
And I still go back to the board meetings are business meetings. They are not informational meetings for the owners.
Right.
There are other opportunities for owners to ask questions, but the meeting is not the time for that. Sure. The owners may make a comment or statement about what the board is discussing. They may make that on an agenda item, but it's not a Q&A and back and forth. It's not a question. It's a statement or a comment. And I think, again, when you go back to the purpose of the meeting, so that everybody knows the role they play. The board members know that it's a business meeting for them, so they need to sit around and face each other. Owners need to know that the board is not being rude. The board is facing itself so that it can converse. It's not facing the owners. And if we can ever get that part right, then it should lower the temperature. However, right now, Suzanne, while everybody's talking about money, money topics raise people's temperature. Yeah. But then when you go back to the reason for the community association, it's communal living. Yeah. Everybody shares.
That's right.
Just because you don't use the swimming pool doesn't mean you can deduct that. Just because
that's such a good point, Betsy.
Just because you don't live along the fence line doesn't mean that you don't pay for the fence meat.
Right.
You chose to live here. Nobody held a gun to your head and made you sign closing documents. You chose. And when you chose to live here, you agreed to comply with everything in your documents.
Betsy, we kind of talked about this in the beginning, though. Don't you think a little bit of more education for people who are going into community living would be helpful so that they're not taken by surprise? Or like, I signed what? I mean, how can we get more education in that before the papers are signed while it's part of the consideration process?
I send out my YouTube channel link.
Yeah.
But I suspect that nobody looks at it. No, it's on my signature on my emails.
Yeah.
To look at the YouTube channel. I'm doing as much as I can to educate people. I am producing the videos. They cost me money. I'm not getting any money from them. So this is my contribution to society.
Right. Yeah.
The Community Association Society. I am on call, a whole speed dial for a whole lot of people around the state, both board members, owners, and managers. And I'm educating the best I can, but I'm only one person.
That's right.
And I don't hear, and that might be because there aren't very many, but I don't hear anybody else saying what I'm saying about board meetings and about
I agree.
And
I absolutely
I don't
agree.
hear anybody in our industry. There are some attorneys who will talk about it, but that's attorney speak.
Right.
It's not common language speak.
Right.
And I just, we've got hurricane season coming up. That's going to add more stress. We need more preparation. Communities are still dealing with the damages the last several years on both the East Coast and the West Coast of Florida.
Right.
Owners are still being special assessed for repairs of insurance. So it's not, the stress level is not going to get better, especially as we head into hurricane season. And those of you who've got your hurricane plans, now's the time to start checking the list of the things to do before hurricane season. It's coming up time in another couple of months to trim palm trees and everything, get all that trash out of the trees. Just make sure your emergency plans are in place, your evacuation plans are in place. You've got some availability of cash in case the power goes out. You have your emergency supplies, your boots, your tarps, your shovels, your chainsaws. You've got all of those things in place, because that's just going to add more stress if you don't.
Yeah. Betsy, it sounds to me like you're saying we need to learn to manage our stress better in a kinder way, and that will change the world if we could do that.
It would.
Yeah.
That's a big goal.
Yeah. We got a big God.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Betsy, thank you so much for joining us. We will catch up next week. And as always, please, if you are consuming these videos and audio, we'd love for you to share them on your social media platforms.
Please.
Verbally let people know about them, because Betsy is on fire for CAM living, and she's the go-to.
And don't you dare call me and say, call me.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Please tell me. I'd rather hear a long 2-minute, 3-minute message, please.
You heard it here. All right. Betsy, we'll see you next month.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to CAM Matters. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more information, feel free to email Betsy at betsy@floridacamschools.com or visit the Florida Cam Schools website at www.floridacamschools.com. Information provided on this show is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact a licensed attorney for your specific situation.